How are you? I hope you all are fine and you're having very good time at your home. I'm your science teacher, Memuna Sayyed. This is your science book, Oxford Secondary Science, and today we are going towards lesson number 2 and study unit 5, that is atoms, molecules, mixtures, and compounds. The topics under discussion are combining elements, molecules, and compounds, mixtures, uses of mixtures, and finally we will talk about uses of compounds. But before going towards our today's lesson, I would like to recall our previous lesson, which was about atoms and elements, metals and non-metals. We have also discussed the difference between both of them. Then finally, we had studied about the uses of elements and their related properties. So the learning objectives for today's lesson are molecules and compounds, difference between molecules and compounds, mixtures and the uses of mixtures, and the uses of compounds. Okay? Rest of them like iron, sulfur, and gold, they are an element, whereas water is a molecule or a compound. That's why water is the odd one. And water consists of two elements, that is hydrogen and oxygen joined together. That's why water is a compound, it's not an element, and that's the reason water is the odd one out of them. Here is our main content, that is the molecules and compounds. So let's start about molecule. Molecule is an electrically neutral group of two or more atoms that is held together by a chemical bonds. Do you understand? They are electrically neutral. They can't react further, and they are joined together by a chemical bond. And the molecules are distinguished from ions by their lack of electrical charge. There is no electrical charge present on a molecules, and they can be same or they can be of different atoms. For example, oxygen is made up of same type of atoms, whereas in carbon dioxide there is an atom of carbon and oxygen. Whereas here you can see that the molecules described are above was very simple, like carbon dioxide and oxygen are quite simple. But some of them consist of many and much larger molecules that is made up of many different atoms joined together in a complicated shapes. Like plants and animals have some giant molecules like cellulose and starch. They are quite big. They contain about thousands or even millions of atoms linked into long chains or sheets or spiral shapes. Okay, so some of these giant molecules are large enough to be seen with a powerful electron microscope. Here you can see the molecule of a cellulose, and this is a starch molecule. So there are millions of atoms joined together to give these polysaccharides. Here comes the compound. So do you know what is a compound? A compound is basically a chemical compound that is a substance composed of many identical molecules composed of atoms. It includes water and methane. Okay, in methane there are two hydrogen atoms and one oxygen atoms, whereas in methane there are four hydrogen and one carbon. So these are some of the example of compounds because they are containing two different elements. And how compounds are formed? They're formed by a chemical reactions which usually involve energy. Okay, and they involve energy in the form of light, in the form of heat, or both. And they being even given out or taken it. Okay, if they're given out, they are called exothermic reactions, and if they're taken in, they are called endothermic reactions. And there are also some green poisonous gas which we use in our swimming pools to kill germs, which is a chlorine gas. Okay, here comes the models that scientists use to show the atoms and molecules. Here is a methane model. You can see it contains only one carbon atom and four hydrogen atoms. That's why the formula of methane is CH4. Whereas in water, there is only one oxygen and two hydrogen atoms. So the formula of water is H2O. I hope you are getting my point. Here are the differences between, here are some differences you can see here between the molecule and the compound. So let's start from molecule. A molecule is a group of two or more atoms held together by a chemical bonds. So what is a molecule? It's a group of two or more atoms held together by a chemical bonds. So here you can see chemical bonding is required just to make them to join together and to make a molecule. Whereas a compound is a substance which is formed by two or more different types of elements, and which are united chemically but in a fixed proportion. But when we talk about the molecules, we didn't talk about the fixed proportion. So that is the difference between a compound and a molecule, like a table salt. The formula of table salt is NaCl. And NaCl in NaCl, that is a salt or sodium chloride, there is only one sodium and one chloride. I hope you understand the difference between both of them. Now let's come towards the mixtures. So talking about the mixture, you can say that a mixture contains two or more elements or compounds that are mixed together in a way that does not involve a chemical reaction. It doesn't involve any chemical reaction, and a mixture can be made up of in almost any proportion, and it is often easy to separate it parts when you want to. Like if you just mix a tablespoon of sugar in a water, you are making a mixture. When you make a juice for yourself, it's a mixture. And when you are making a lemonade, it's a mixture. So a mixture usually doesn't involve any chemical reactions. Okay. So the some examples like air, you're always around you. It's a component of oxygen, nitrogen, and other gases. When you talk about ink, it's just a simple thing we use in our daily life, and it's just a mixture of water and various dyes. If we talk about the gunpowder, it contains potassium nitrate, carbon, and sulfur. So when we talk about different things, you you must know, as being a science student, you should be should think about things like this way. Like what if we are talking about mixtures? So you should know about the daily examples that it's a mixture of air. Air is a mixture of oxygen, nitrogen, and other gases. And if we talk about the gunpowder, then something quickly just pop up in your mind that okay, I know that gunpowder is a mixture of potassium nitrate, carbon, and sulfur. Okay, so talking about the baking powder we use quite occasionally while we are baking, do you know it's a mixture of sodium bicarbonate and tartaric acid. So these are some of the very simple examples you should know. And crude oil, which is a mixture of different oils like petrol, kerosene, diesel, and other hydrocarbons. This is also a mixture of different oils. So these are very basic examples that you should understand the scientist and being a chemist. Here are some very simple uses of mixtures that we see in or we being used in our daily life. Look at this. This is a lemonade. Like we drink lemonade during summer. I think daily we used to have milk daily. So what it is, it's just a mixture, okay? So these are some of the very common examples. And milk is a mixture of water and various proteins and fats and other substances. If we talk about the lemon, it contains a water, sugar, and different flavoring agents and carbon dioxide as well. So these are some very simple examples. Here is petrol, cereal, and vinegar. So talking about their compositions, petrol is a mixture of hydrocarbons such as heptanes, octanes, and various additives. And when we talk about the cereal, which we usually have daily in our breakfast, it's uh, it's just a mixture of milk and different you can say that different wheat. It can be of oats, whatever you like. And talking about the vinegar, which is a mixture of water and acetic acid. Coming towards more examples like wood, these are some of the very common everyday life examples like wood, glass, pizza, and concrete. So when we talk about the wood, like chair, we use to sit, and the table on which you have just placed in your book or laptop, whatever you. So wood is a very complicated mixture. It's a very complicated mixture of many kinds of compounds. And glass is a mixture of, it's a mixture of sand, soda ash, and limestone. Okay? And pizza, which is a very favorite dish of every youngster and every student. Like I myself love pizza. So it's a cake mix or a mixture. We use baking soda, baking powder, we use different ingredients to make pizza dough, and it's also a mixture. Yes, it's example of a mixture. So we are done with the mixtures now. So do you know there are some mixture of metals as well? Like when we talk about the mixture of metal, then we call them an alloy. An alloy is a combination of metals, or metals are combined with one or more other elements. Like metals are often mixed and they form alloys. There are different examples of alloys like steel, brass, bronze, and silver. Okay, so the common types include there are stainless steel, brass, bronze, and silver. Now, if we talk further about these types, stainless steel, which is a mixture of elements. Which mixture? Iron, carbon, and chromium. So this is a mixture of these three metals. And you can see these things easily in our home. These are like a simple cookware. You use this flask, okay? This stainless steel flask, it's a saucepan, a scissor. So these are some very common examples. Whereas brass is a mixture of copper and zinc. Okay, so it's a mixture of copper and zinc, and here you can see some decoration pieces made up of this brass material. Coming towards the bronze, which is a mixture of copper and tin, it's also an alloy which mixed together and formed this stuff. And this is also used in different purposes, like in decoration pieces, for making different antique pots, etc. Silver. Silver is a mixture of copper and nickel. So this is a simple alloy which is a mixture of copper and nickel. But when we
About
even simpler, like seawater, the rocks, muddy beaches, and smoke all over, they are also mixtures. Okay, so these are also the examples of mixtures. Here comes the uses of compounds. So, material that is made up of compounds are far more common than pure elements. Okay, so the vital material that is water. It's composed of element of hydrogen and oxygen, and these two atoms of hydrogens are joined to one atom of oxygen, and so water has the formula H2O. The next example is a plastic bucket. It is made up of millions of carbon and hydrogen atoms that is joined together in a very long chain. So whenever you see a plastic basket or a bucket, you should know that it is composed of millions of carbon and hydrogen atoms. The blackboard chalk is compound and it is made up of calcium, sulfur and oxygen. And this compound is called calcium sulfate and it has the formula like CaSO4. Here, the true chalk and limestone, okay? It's a composed of calcium and carbon and oxygen, and its chemical name is called calcium carbonate. Here are some of the examples, like there is a compound and of which elements they are composed of. So when we talk about different examples of the compounds, here comes like first of all there is a carbon dioxide which is very common example. We know this gas very easily, and it's a mixture of carbon, as its name indicates. It's a mixture of carbon and di means two. So carbon, there is a one carbon and two oxygen. Okay, so the compound methane, it is composed of carbon and hydrogen, because we have just studied that the formula of methane is CH4. Talking about the glucose, which is a very rich source of energy in plants and animals as well, as we have already know that the formula of glucose is C6H12O6, and there is a mixture of carbon, there is hydrogen and oxygen in the compound of glucose. Talking about the table sugar, which is also called sucrose, it's a mixture of carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen. And table salt that we use in our daily cooking, which is called sodium chloride, it's composed of sodium and chloride. Talking about the sulfuric acid, which is very poisonous acid, it contains of hydrogen, sulfur, and oxygen. So when we talk about the copper sulfate, it consists of copper, sulfur, and oxygen. So these are some of the very common examples of compounds, and about the elements present in these compounds. And I hope this is quite easy for you to learn these simple things, and it would be really easy for you to understand the composition of the compound if you know the elements present inside it, or it composed of the elements. Here is a task for the next class, which is about pre-reading of the page number 50 to 54 and highlight important points. This is a very important point. You need to highlight the important points just for your health, that whenever you open your book, you know that these are the points I need to give more attention. Okay, so don't forget to highlight the important points. And while you're reading, just try to make short questions. Try to think like a teacher and try to take out as many as short questions or MCQs you can take out of your chapter. And here is the assignment. Learn and write question number 4, 5, 6, 7 on page number 55, and these questions are on, you can find easily on page number 55 of your book. And then learn and write some important definitions of like molecule, compounds, and alloy, and learn these definitions because these are very important from the examination point of view, for your information as well. So try to be attentive while you are listening to the lecture and while you are preparing for your stuff. So here is a wrap up slide just to review some of the concepts we have just gone through. So first of all, it's about a molecule. We talked about the molecule that when two or more atoms form chemical bonds with each other, they form a molecule. And a compound is a molecule that contains at least two different elements in a fixed proportion. That is the important point. And a mixture is a combination of two or more pure substances, whereas an alloy is a combination of metals or non-metals combined together with alloy is a combination of metals or the metals that are combining with other metals to form other elements, but they are a mixture of metals only. I just mistakenly said non-metals, but it's a mixture or a combination of metals. Remember this point, okay? Thank you so much. I hope you like the lecture. Bye bye, everybody. Till we meet again. Allah Hafiz.